This is the E-Commerce Edge podcast with your host, Jason Greenwood. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the E-Commerce Edge podcast. We're going to have a fantastic conversation with an incredible new guest that I'll be introducing to you in just a moment. But before I do that, I would love to encourage you to go to whichever platform you're listening to or watching this episode on. Like, please comment, please share. Helps us with the algos. We always appreciate your help. We've got a back catalog of over 460 episodes of incredible conversations with incredible guests like the one I'm going to introduce you to shortly. You are our marketing team, and we really appreciate your help. But without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome Philippe, and I'm sure I've absolutely butchered that, from CONSIO. Welcome, Philippe.
Thanks so much for having me, Jason. Really appreciate it.
No worries. My English-speaking tongue struggles with the French-Canadian names.
It's rolling the R's that gets everybody, but all great.
Yeah, look, it's amazing to have you along for the ride today. And if anybody goes to by the time this episode is released, if they go to your profile on LinkedIn, which I will link to in the show notes, they will see, obviously, that you've been building out CONSIO. But as of today, as of right now, you're still in stealth mode, and you're going to be launching January 6th. And before we get into what CONSIO is and how it came to be, help me better understand and help my audience understand how you even came to be in this incredible digital commerce space in the first place.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. And I've been in e-commerce for about 10 years now. I ran one of actually the first Shopify Plus store 8-9 years ago with a colleague, and we were drop shipping back days. It was a lot of fun selling fitness watches and bikinis from China. And through that experience, I discovered a platform called Gorgias. Well, at the time, it was literally 2 founders and an intern. And I'll get back to that in a second. But we were having issues on Zendesk. And already at 3-4 people company, Gorgias was a more powerful tool for e-commerce than Zendesk back then. So our stores that were doing like in the tens of millions per year, we adopted Gorgias, ripped apart Zendesk, and a few months, a year later, I joined them as an early employee because there was so much potential in that platform. So I was lucky to be part of the Gorgias experience for about 5 years as a very early employee there. Then I did a year at the company called Nordbeam. They do attribution analytics. And more recently, I was at ShipBob, their VP of partnerships, and there's a lot of B2B components as well there in logistics. But yeah, so I was working at ShipBob more recently, and at that moment, I re-met some previous partners from the customer service space, and we were just chatting about like outbound phone, and we're like, hey, like, why are brands not calling their customers when they're sitting on all those phone numbers? And it really came down to the conclusion that it was just a technology issue at this moment, that there was just no platform or no simple way for brands to do that. So we set ourselves to build the first phone sales platform for commerce. And that's basically the journey, the 10-year journey experience. And one thing I'll just go to on the Gorgias experience is the first intern that was at Gorgias was Martin Latry. So he was their first founding engineer after the CTO and CEO. And the day I had this idea of phone sales for commerce, I saw him post on LinkedIn for the first time in 7 years. I was like, oh, what do you think of this idea? And then he returned like a robot that he was like then selling on the phone in the menu cart. And I was like, okay, that's it. So Martin, who was the founding engineer at Gorgias, is my co-founder at CONSIO. So it's a little rehash there on this previous Gorgias experience.
Wow, what a journey. And you mentioned off air before we went live that you also founded the whole DTCX concept, the whole program series over at Gorgias while you were there as well. And I've worked with Anna, and I've spoken at a couple of DTCX events, virtual events. They've got the physical events now as well, along with the DTCX series. And you said you were heavily involved in developing that.
Yeah, I was in charge of the events program at Gorgias, and we were running, and Anna, if you spoke with her, she is very famous for running over 350 events a year. And but it came from a simple conclusion, like throughout COVID, that there wasn't enough event to our appetite. So we had to create our own event brand. And that's how it came about. And it's great to see that it's still running strong today. And it's a place for the e-commerce and specifically the CX leaders to gather. And it's a great sub community for CX leaders. If you guys are not involved in that, go check it out. It's a fantastic resource for CX leaders.
What I loved about the whole DTCX concept was that for the first couple, well, at least that I was aware of, Gorgias wasn't really tightly linked with that brand. In fact, unless you knew that Gorgias was operating this D2C X brand, you would have thought that this was an independent event company that was running this. And I guess that was part of the strategy behind it, was to say, look, we don't want Gorgias to be front and center. We want these brands to be front and center. We want experts in the industry to be front and center, and Gorgias to effectively be a minor footnote, so to speak, where effectively the D2CX brand was the halo over Gorgias versus Gorgias being the halo over the event. And so it feels like that was a very strategic move at the time.
100%. And it's really just like we needed to build some kind, if we were looking at the industry, we're looking at the industry as a funnel. And we're like, hey, there's a team that's overarching us that's way more powerful than our brand, and that's the CX team. And we're like, how can we go and really have some level of input on that CX team? And really creating a brand that was overarching this was very intentional. And then like Gorgias was just one of the components that was supporting this community, just like any other SaaS businesses that wanted to get involved. Like we had some events that were organized by like SMS providers, like by attribution platforms. They would take ownership of that event or that part of the community for a little while, and we would just like support with the logistics. So it was completely intentional, but it was to give like a space that's not like necessarily SaaS completely owned for CX leaders to gather. And yeah, I think it's still somewhat like the play today for that. And obviously, if I'm giving the secret of this whole thing, is like in the back end though, you have the Gorgias CRM running the thing, the Gorgias events. So it's, while the branding is not necessarily fully owned, it still like powers data that like helps us understand and understand how the users are participating in the ecosystem at large.
I think you've tapped into something there, and I promise we will talk about your amazing new platform, but I think this is so important as a really important sort of side quest that we need to talk about here, which is that I think most platform vendors, service providers, et cetera, they need to think about their brand really as a media play first, and then whatever they do separate to that second. And I think of that even in my own life. The e-commerce edge has got no association with Greenwood Consulting, apart from the fact that I run both. But the reality is we've got now 460 plus episodes. We drop 3 new podcast episodes a week, and I'm not up here promoting me, myself, my services. That's not the point of the podcast. The point of the podcast is to put my guests on show, to put their technology on show, to put their knowledge, their experience, basically giving them a forum and a platform where they can give back to the community, just as I want to give back to the community, because the reality is this industry has been very good to me. It's allowed me to make a very good living. It's allowed me to create a very good lifestyle for myself. Most of my friends come from the industry. That's how I met them. And so the reality is I love this industry, and I wanted to create a forum whereby we could have conversations that weren't being had anywhere else, or at least as I saw it, not being had anywhere else, and certainly not through my lens, which is more the operational and technical side of e-commerce. And when I used to slide into DMs before I had a podcast, and if I wanted a conversation with somebody like you, for example, you might have thought, for example, that I was going to sell you something. If I slid into your DMs and say, hey, let's tee up a 15-minute conversation and chew the fat and talk shop about our industry, the natural assumption is he's trying to sell me something. Whereas when you have a podcast, then the assumption isn't I'm trying to sell you something. There is a benefit to both of us in being able to have these conversations. And so it basically has facilitated the ability for me to grow my network, make more professional friends, learn more things, because it's not just the people I have on my podcast being able to talk about their thing, but it's also educating me and my audience in the process. And so I feel like that is a virtuous cycle. So content, I think, as long as it's good content, as long as it's relevant, as long as it's focused, as long as it has some core pillars that people can count on, I feel like that's a virtuous cycle. And I feel like most SaaS platform vendors, most major people in our industry who are trying to grow their personal brand, who are trying to grow their professional brand, I feel like there's really starting to get religion around the concept of content as marketing, right? But it's got to be a secondary consideration to the content itself. If the content isn't good, if the content isn't standalone and uniquely valuable, then it will never have the halo benefits that these brands and individuals expect from it, right?
I couldn't agree more. And I think where like a company like Gorgeous, they have certain means, they were able to go like that community over content and really just create that space. And I think a lot of SaaS still, yes, the content part, like a lot of people are getting that, but like just really creating a space that doesn't necessarily put their brand forward all the time is so hard to resist. Like it's so hard to do. And
Yeah.
always, I'm going to invest a little bit in this. Like I need right now to stamp like everything as being from my brand. But if you do that, like really, you're creating this, this resonance that yes, you're trying to sell me something like all the time. So even if I'm a like Yako, for example, a woman in commerce, it's a beautiful like initiative and so on. But just okay, but already like I have the brand slapped over it like everywhere. It just feels okay. It's one of the marketing play. So, and that's really where I think a lot of people fall in the trap. And if you can create something that's bigger than your brand, or it's not necessarily as big, but that's another layer, that's really has a lot of potential to have a positive impact. But it's a slightly long-term play.
It is a much longer term play, but I think it's the more sustainable play. That's
Right.
the reality, right? At the end of the day, if my content wasn't valuable or wasn't interesting or maybe wasn't entertaining, if it didn't bring some element of education to the table that benefited the industry as a whole, then I don't think you get traction in that environment. But I think if we look to the wider media landscape, somebody that I have always pointed to as doing this better than just about anyone else is Red Bull.
Right.
At the end of the day, you look at the Red Bull air races. Yes, their name is in almost everything that they do, but the reality is they're probably more known now for action sports, adventure sports, than they are as an energy drink. The reality is that brand, that Red Bull brand, is more synonymous with adventure sports than it is with, there's probably a lot of people that the first thing that they think of when they think of Red Bull, action sports, not an energy drink. And I think that is what a powerful halo to bring to your brand.
Yeah, they're definitely the winner in that media space. They were able to almost transform their brand through that. So 100%.
It's pretty impressive. Now, I'm guessing that we'll talk about CONSIO, but are we going to start seeing CONSIO events? Are you going to replicate that sort of success that you found through Gorgeous? Is that kind of how you're going to launch this new brand for yourself as well?
I think like we're even already thinking one step beyond that. Yes, the events obviously is a great channel. It's sometimes a little bit expensive for a new software provider coming out. Like they can really rack up the bills quickly. But I think there's a unique opportunity right now. There's something that people don't talk about at all in e-commerce, which is the hard action of doing sales. Not, hey, you have marketing, like that's driving website visitors, and then you have like optimization on your website, and then a sale is made on the website. No, I'm talking about like people engaging with clients proactively and actually doing the hard work of closing a sale to somebody that's maybe lacking a little bit of information, that's not ready to buy now, and so on. I don't know if you recall, but like we used to walk into stores, into malls, and so on, and you would have an associate walking up to you, and they would be like, "Is there anything I can help you today? Do you need help finding something?" And they would have like incentives on actually, converting you, like and making you purchase something. But when I was in university, like several years ago, I had an internship for a couple of weeks in a electronics retail store, and we were during Christmas, and we were comped to go and drive as many sales as we could from the floor. Nobody talks about or takes like that in e-commerce anymore. It's all like marketing that drives like traffic that is optimized and that converts hopefully to a great percentage. But what about like the act of engaging and closing hard sales? So I think we have a unique opportunity to really own the sales narrative, the action of selling in e-commerce. And that can take a lot of different like fun vibes to the ecosystem, which is like very marketing oriented. And if you're in the B2B space, and if you're like in the real B2B space, like you always need to go and find retailers, find stores, find customers, and close those customers. But like in the B2C side, like in e-commerce, it's not really like that, but we think we can drive this narrative in e-commerce. And I think that's going to open up a lot of interesting opportunities.
I think you've hit on something here that I have preached for a very long time in the e-commerce world, and I have felt like a voice in the wilderness for a long time, which is that commerce brands really need to focus on what I call scaling the unscalable. And that is when I think of even brands I've worked inside of historically, the customer service teams, for example, they rarely are busy 100% of the time. So when they're not responding to emails, when they're not trying to chase down orders, when they're not responding to live chats, when they're not responding to phone calls, there is always downtime for at least some of your customer service agents at some point throughout the day. And I have always said that the trick that many brands are missing is and you pointed it out, what is already common in the B2B world, which is an account managed relationship, right? It would be unheard of in the B2B world for there not, especially at a certain level of revenue, for an account manager not to have a regular call cycle, for them to not have a regular visitation cycle, for them not to be having conversations with their customers. And if their customers, for example, were buying every single month for 5 years and then all of a sudden they stopped buying one day, it would be unthinkable for the account manager not to ring them up and say, hey, Bob, hey, Jane, I noticed you haven't placed an order in a couple of months. What's going on? Is there anything we can help with? Is there any new products we can source for you, etc.? It would be unthinkable for those conversations not to be happening routinely in the B2B world. But for some reason, the B2C and D2C world has always taken the approach that all of our communication is going to be push. It's going to be push notifications in the browser. It's going to be push emails from Klaviyo, our marketing automation platform. It's going to be push communications, SMS from us to you. It is apart from maybe a Feedbackify tab on your website, or maybe having a contactable phone number or email address on your website. Most B2C and D2C brands are not creating a two-way conversational relationship with their customers. And I just think about the fact that when I moved from New Zealand to Mexico, for example, there were a number of brands that I had bought off of for years online, monthly, every 2 months, every 3 months, whatever it is. And I just fell off the radar. I just stopped buying. Not a single one of those brands ever has reached out to me to say, hey, you were a customer of ours for years, and all of a sudden you stopped buying from us. Can we learn a little bit more? You were a super valuable customer to us. We really appreciate your business, but we also want to learn more about our customers and understand what happens when they stop buying through us. So what happened? And then I could have the conversation. Well, I've actually moved out of the country. That's why I've unsubscribed. That's why I've stopped buying from you. But the fact that not a single brand has ever done that in the history, and as a person who's worked in this industry for 24 years, I buy almost everything online. The reality is I don't really enjoy physical shopping. So 90% of my purchases at retail are online. And the fact that not a single brand has ever reached out to me to have a conversation is frankly shocking. And it feels like this is part, or your technology is aimed at being part of that solution.
It's exactly, first of all, we didn't stage this, but everything you just said is exactly on point. And we think that it's because, first of all, like, the only thing is they didn't have the technology and the enablement to do that before. And all the technology was geared toward those, what do you call push, but they were all one-to-many channels. And they never will feel like completely customized. And if you get the SMS message, like everybody receives the same, like 20% off for Mother's Day, for Valentine's Day, for Black Friday, it never feels like it's actually coming from someone for me. And it's always coming out as a marketing communication. And having this context of, hey, you purchased 6 times in the last year, and just like having extremely minimal like human review, but still like It can't take. It's either a click or like a confirmation or a word that's changed or voice, and just like the right context to engage with you. And just, hey, Jason, like, you're in this new country. Like, what happened? Like, you churned. You were a subscriber for 2 years. I'm your rep here. That never happens. And we think, yeah, that this is really about to change. And that it's going to be like a new edge that brands can like leverage to be more competitive, because like the brands that are going to call there are $2,000 abandoned checkout, the brands that are going to call like and maybe engage post that, like having multi-channel sequencing that just like always one-to-one, even though if it's at scale, even if it's generated by AI, but at least it's, I tried to call you, I'm leaving you like a specific voicemail because you were a churn, like you're a churn subscribers, and I need to understand why. And after my second call, I'll send you an SMS like, hey, Jason, I'm your rep at company wide, just checking in on you. If you have any feedback or if you need like a special offer or tell us like what happened, and or like an email that follows that after that, like again, from my personal email to you, just checking in, I'm like seeing what's going on. I think, yeah, this is about to change. It's about to happen in 2025.
Wow. And I guess CONSIO, did that name, is it a play on words of the idea of a concierge? Was that the idea behind it?
Yeah. So it's like at the end of the day, we needed like a short name, like everybody, it's like the name that it is. But yes, there's like the concierge element, there's the conversation element. There's a couple of things that just really fit it nicely in that name. So that there's also like the initial idea is like a full AI that calls you. So like I think in Q2 2025, you're going to start seeing some brands for a specific use case. Hey, credit card expired on your subscription. Gym memberships call you back for that. Like, why aren't brands calling their like expired credit, their dunning subscribers? Like, no idea why they're not doing it, but like outside they don't have the technology. But we think we're gonna have like first AIs that do like specific tasks. Hey, your subscription is still active, but your credit card is expired. Is there something we can help you? Here's your link. I think that's starting in Q2 2020. But that was like also conscience, concierge, conversations. Like we're like CONSIO fitted a little bit those three like pillars under which we're building this company.
Wow, I love it. And you call yourselves, like you bill it your headline, and in all transparency, you haven't launched yet. I've never used your platform before, so I have to go by what's on the tin, so to speak, on the website. But you bill yourselves as the phone sales platform for e-commerce. But it feels like it's more than that. It feels like there is the sales element, the service element, the touch point element. It feels like this is going to aid in brand recall. It feels like this is going to keep brands top of mind with their customers, whether it be their most valuable customers, and the approach they'll take with them is very different to what they would take for maybe a STEM campaign or a credit card update campaign. There's probably different campaigns, so to speak, that would be run underneath this umbrella of phone sales, but I feel like it's more like helping to build the relationship with the customer via the phone. That's what it feels like to me, but the net result will probably be more sales as well.
That the net result needs to be hard dollar that can be directly attributed. Like if we want to be successful on this thing, like we need to be able to like easily attribute revenue. The great news is that nobody's ever, and I used to work at an attribution platform, nobody's ever going to argue with the fact that if you had a direct conversation with someone that was not on the website at the moment that you engage with them, that sale should be attributed to you. Like really calling somebody that's not currently on your website and that person had dropped off for XYZ reason, the number of dollar that we're going to say like is coming from this chat because they converted within a couple of days of your conversation, nobody's ever going to argue with that. So we think we have a phone has like the most important potential channel, or the one that's like least likely to be in an attribution little war or an attribution little challenge from other channels versus like email. Yes, okay, Klaviyo is taking attribution, but really they just signed up on my pop-up on the thing, and they really like even click on the thing, they just open the email. Like how much can I really attribute to that? Like people say 20%, right? 30%, but it's definitely, it's a great touch point in a mix, in a marketing mix. But phone is going to be, I think, like the one that's least likely to be disputed. But yes, what you mentioned, the function of campaign is the first way for easily segmenting your customers. So you need, like, those campaigns can be continuous or one time, right? Like you want to do a reactivation or you want to have something that always keeps running. But yes, first it starts at the campaign level. So it's really, you're going to build this campaign of, your most, like if you have a lot of volume, like your highest value abandoned checkout or add to cart, any add to cart over $200, I want to go check in on them, like maybe. Then you're going to have your dunning subscribers, your every customers that churned more than 2 months ago, right? Like right after 2 months, they churned, they're likely to have depleted the inventory that they purchased. Yeah, I'll go check in on them to see what's going on. So that concept of campaign is at the core of the thing. And the phone sales platform, it's like phone again, it's the one channel that nobody really like yet rolled out on an outbound function. So we really start with owning and doing a great phone experience. But you're right, like around this phone experience, like other channel touch points are going to come into play to support this one-to-one interaction. So like your SMS or your email is also going to come in, but it's never going to be like a beautifully crafted email with nice images or like an SMS with like beautiful GIFs. It's always going to come in and feel a little bit raw, like one-to-one, plain text, and it often in support of the phone call or the voicemail. Because we didn't mention voicemail, but voicemail is a huge channel now. It's going to become a huge channel. You can automatically drop voicemail without having to record them on every call. And this now gets displayed and automatically transcribed on your main phone screen. Whereas your SMS now is marked as a spam, voicemails are capturing more real estate than ever on your main phone. So automatically dropping voicemails, we think is going to be a very powerful element and also creates inbound calls. So you're like, hey, this is your rep at company Y. I was just checking in like from your last order 3 months ago. If there's anything we could do better, we have a special deal just for you. Call us back. And we see right now about 1/10 of the voicemail create a callback. That's like really likely to be like in order to close a sale, right? Like they want that information. They want to re-engage with your brand. So those are creating, voicemails are also creating like unique experience to close more sales.
And I think you raise a very good point, which is that brands now are starting to become, not all brands, but certainly the more mature brands, are starting to realize that multi-touch, even if it's one-to-many communication, multi-touch, multi-channel communication is much more effective than, for example, just hammering email, which is why companies like Postpilot exist, which is why Klaviyo wants to be the master of not only email and SMS, but also push notifications, etc., so that as part of a multi-touch communications workflow, we can have those splits in the workflow that says, okay, they didn't respond to email, cool. We're going to now, the next time they visit our website, we're going to send them a very tailored push notification that is, instead of just a generic push notification,
Right.
now it's personalized. We're gonna integrate with things like Nosto and on-site personalization to send them a personalized experience on the website. We're gonna, as part of the workflow, maybe it'll fork at one point, and we're gonna send them an SMS. At one point, it's gonna fork. We're gonna send them a physical mail, because physical mail still gets oddly gets cut through that you don't get any other way, because it's like, oh my God, I received a physical mail from this brand. Can't believe it. Okay, here's a coupon code or a QR code on this physical postcard or whatever it is. Cool. It feels, for some reason, it feels more personal nowadays if you receive a physical piece of mail, because it's so uncommon that you would receive physical mail from a brand. It gets more cut through. And then I think if we can integrate your workflow as just another node in the marketing automation workflow to say, look, they haven't responded to emails, they haven't responded to text, they haven't responded to push notifications or physical mail. Cool. Well, let's drop a phone call node in that workflow to just break it up, to break up the types of communication so that people don't just feel like they're being spammed in their inbox constantly, trying to vary the types and styles and, I guess, campaigns and messaging. Trying to vary that by touch point feels like a way for a brand to get better cut through, especially for those customers that are virtually immune to email and have unsubscribed from everything?
And there's a lot of them. And Postpilot doesn't know it, but they're one of the inspiration that led us to create the CONSIO. We saw like how they were able to create somewhat like or transform a channel that like existed forever and adapt it for e-commerce, specifically by syncing Klaviyo segments. And that's how we started as well. And that's how we're starting. We don't have like our own segmentation engine, but we use either Shopify or Klaviyo segments for now. But eventually we can use like segments from a lot of different platforms. But this is where we started. And that was in part inspired a little bit by how Postpilot launched. So they don't know it, but shout out to the Postpilot guys.
Yeah, I've had them on the podcast. I've had the Northbeam guys on the podcast. You're in very good company here. And for you guys, I guess if we think about this January 6th launch date, what will be the foundational feature set that you're going to launch with from day one that will be ready to go, plug and play for brands? I'm guessing, obviously, integrating with marketing automation becomes important. Being able to pull down those segments becomes important. But this is a fully AI chatbot driven, effectively phone service, right? This doesn't require, apart from maybe setting up the campaigns, setting up the triggers, setting up the rules, maybe even setting up the scripts, etc. Maybe there's going to be some required input from the brands, but I'm guessing you're trying to make this as much of a plug and play solution as possible.
Yeah, but it's not just one caveat. It's not full AI agents. So there's still like a human agent that's calling, so if we just go like very high level, but the feature set. So yes, like Klaviyo and Shopify integration, we use their segments to create campaigns. So you have a campaign builder. This campaign builder allows you to then set certain campaign criteria, like how many times do you want to call a phone number? Because if they don't pick up the first time, like you should try again tomorrow. You should try again the day after. And then there's, the how many times and the delay between each time. There is like voicemail per dial attempt. Because if you're like, hey, I want to call 3 times this phone number, you might leave a voicemail on the first attempt, no voicemail on the second attempt, and maybe a voicemail on the third attempt, just like, hey, again, it was me, but understand you're busy. If ever something comes up, call us back. So like slightly like almost like a breakup voicemail. But so the voicemail sequencing, automated voicemail drops and voicemail sequencing is a big function of that. And there was a lot of work that was done on cleaning the list of phone numbers, because like you might have some Klaviyo profiles that don't have a phone number associated in Klaviyo, but it might be associated at the abandoned checkout file level in Shopify. So we're waterfalling like data in order to enrich the names and the phone number properties for each of your customer accounts. And that's a big feature, we feel like, because the first like aspect of this is like, I want to make sure I'm calling as many people as possible, and those people are like extremely relevant and are really well geared in their segment, right? So we're like cross matching phone numbers and personal data across multiple places in both Shopify and Klaviyo. That's like really fundamental thing. And then there's like the whole aspect around like automatically provisioning phone numbers and having a very clean UI for an agent to make calls from. So where you see all their past orders, what they have in their checkout, the last time they looked at their checkout, like the whole like call history data and call dispositions. So that's really like the basic feature set that we're launching with, and that is pretty much already active right now, mid-December. And just behind that, what's following up is there's 2 things, like attribution. So like really being able to associate, okay, I left a voice, and we have a model that's very close to the Facebook model, if you want. We're doing 1-day voicemail, 7-day customer talk to. So we're going to measure if the person converts within 1 day of receiving a voicemail or 7-day after talking to an agent. So it's a little bit reminiscent of this 1-day view, 7-day click, right? So very similar to that. And also just behind in January, most likely we'll have a V1 there, but just like sending SMS when on a call. So if you're on a call with someone, you can easily copy from the UI their checkout link. Oh, do you have all the information here? I'm sending you back your own checkout link. Boom, it lands on their SMS. Then you can have a multi-channel communication in real time with those customers. So that's really what's launching on day 0. And also there's one thing I didn't mention, but the first AI features that we have are generating cue cards and what are the likely objections for your brand automatically with AI. So you just input like your website product URL or a little bit of a prompt guide, and that will generate like your 10 most likely objections, a good opener for you to start the conversation with, a closing argument based on your promotion that you want to run all automatically. So at least it gives you, it removes the syndrome of the white page. You have a lot, and then you can just change a couple of words and you're up and running.
More like a script, right? It's an
Right.
auto-generated script to a degree. And then is it your vision ultimately? There's two questions I have that fall out of that. Amazing suite of functionality to launch with, incredible. Is it your vision to ultimately, as voice gets better, as AI gets better, as two-way conversational AI gets better, I don't think it's quite there yet, probably within the next 6 months it will be. Is it your vision to ultimately create fully AI-driven voice agents to where this becomes a fully automated process? And then if the person was to ask, hey, is this an AI agent or whatever, then of course you'd want to be honest with the AI agent and say, hey, look, do you want us to bump you to one of our actual human customer service agents kind of thing? It's like with live chat now. You have the robot, and then if the customer decides to opt out of the robot and want to talk to a human, then the human can jump on board. Although having said that, nowadays, sometimes it's hard to even tell whether the human is not an AI, but
really easy to tell, and it's really annoying. So
yeah, I always opt out at the first opportunity personally.
Yeah, for sure. And 100%. And that's why like our benchmark right now to know like how close we are to being able to roll out like a full AI agent is how great this script is to the brand that we're and for that campaign purpose. So I think, as I was saying a little bit earlier, in Q2 2025, you'll have the first like fully AI outbound voice agent for a defined purpose or campaign goal, such as like credit card expired or Dunning subscription. So it's coming for sure. I think latency is already there. Like you can speak like quick enough that you can have the proper conversation. Knowledge is like from an LLM model is pretty much there. What the hard part is actually structuring the data of the brand in order to be able to have those conversations and accomplish your objective. So I think that's where we need to spend more time. That was, again, the initial goal of this, the initial idea of this company was exactly that. But we realized quickly enough that first we need to build a phone engine, and then we also need to make sure that the data and the list is as well enriched and as accurate as possible for every single campaign objective. So we're pretty much there on those two components, and then we'll start to be able to build what is required for brands onboarding on CONSIO, in terms of what they need to provide us in terms of data, in terms of FAQs. Maybe we ingest 1,000 past tickets that are solved to build more
the knowledge base effectively behind the scenes.
Exactly. So we need to organize the knowledge base of the brand in order to generate extremely accurate script or cue cards, as we call them, in order to then be able to run effectively a single purpose AI agent campaign. And we think we're going to be in a good spot versus any I think it's going to be extremely hard for a generalist voice platform to come and do this, because you need to be so accurate on your purpose about why you're engaging with this customer at this moment, that you can just roll out any thing a little bit rogue. Oh, call those customers to sell them this. And you need very specific scenario for the agent not to go completely sidetracked. And as soon as it goes out a little bit of the main campaign objective, as you said, it's, hey, I'm the artificial agent here at this company. I'm you want me to pass you to a real agent right now. And then that creates inbound inquiries. The customer service team or the inbound sales team effectively at that point. Just, hey, the next subscription, yes, I want to update my card. Great. Do you have the link right now? No. Okay, I'm going to pass you to an agent. They're going to send it to you by SMS right away.
Yeah.
I think that's V0 of outbound voice AI agents for e-commerce.
Yes.
It's what it's going to look like, and it's coming in 2025 for sure.
And also, there are some technologies today that can take an inbound visitor to a website, even though they're unknown and unauthenticated. Maybe they're not a recognized IP address by the brand. Maybe this is their first time visiting a website or whatever, but they have real user identification. There's some AI technologies that do that today they'll send you an email with their LinkedIn profile link, with their phone number, with their email address, all that information, and they're getting it from various databases across the web, and they can help identify visitors that haven't authenticated or don't even have an account with you. Is that something that you guys would look at bringing into this, whereas effectively this becomes a cold lead opportunity, so to speak, or maybe it could be considered a warm lead, but maybe not a hot lead opportunity because they haven't transacted with you before. Now, obviously, you're going to start off with the customers that have an account. We know who they are. They've opted into hearing from us, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But there probably is going to come a point where these brands are going to want to try to convert visitors that maybe they even paid to get to their website through performance marketing, but that never create an account. But maybe they're a guest. They're effectively a guest visitor at that point. Maybe they've even added some products to their cart, but they abandoned, and they're going to want to reach out proactively to these customers because they've paid to get them to their website. We want to, in a perfect world, if we can identify who they are and we have a phone number, maybe we proactively reach out to them. Now, that maybe elevates the creepiness level to a factor of 10, but is that something that you guys are interested in trying to bring to the platform?
I think just like one step above that, the most important thing for, we think, like merchants to be successful right now, like in general, but also on phone, is just like your pop-up. So it's like how great your pop-up is, how good your offer is. And for sure, you need to have the one click, like opt-in on the SMS when you're on mobile on your second step of pop-up, right? This is like baseline right now. If you have a great offer, a good pop-up, and then this one click opt-in on the second step, you're going to capture a lot of phone numbers. Because a lot of the platforms, I think you mentioned, the types of like retention, and there's like a handful of others. I don't think they're discovering phone numbers. Like really, we're not like enriching. However, what they will help to do is if a customer previously like they filled a pop-up or even recart the SMS provider, now they did a pop-up that identifies automatically visitors from other websites once they already identified themselves in one of their pop-up on another website. So they come back and they're like, do you want to also share all of your information to be opted in for this brand? One click, and then it provides your email, your SMS, everything to that new brand as well. So it really reduces the friction on the identification. And we think that this is like extremely powerful. And then that's going to give you a lot of phone numbers. And then you want to track, be able to match it to your customer profiles. Maybe they have like outstanding loyalty points. They do an abandoned cart. So yeah, it's definitely very important that you have this in place in order to be successful, obviously in your SMS program, but then if you want to roll out phone, because you're just going to have so much more data. So that's where it starts. And then yeah, to avoid going to creep level like 10, like start with abandoned checkout, go one step up, abandoned cart. If you really want to go one step up, we were chatting with Canada Goose. So they're talking about, okay, they never discount. So like they need to find ways to convert. They never discount. And they're really like high touch. You go in one of their stores, it's like really premium and everything. They're thinking about calling every single person that identifies themselves on their pop-up, even if they didn't accomplish like an abandoned checkout or anything. It's just, hey, I'm your rep. I'm not even trying to sell you anything, but I'm your associate here at Canada Goose. I'll send you my email. If you have any question, just like exactly the same behavior that if you walked in the store. So they're thinking about like in 2025, reenacting this behavior on phone. So like really you identify yourself, you walk in the store, you're like looking at this offer, you drop your phone number because you want like higher touch point or contacts with them. They will likely, they're not doing it now, but they likely will call you and just introduce themselves. And then it might follow up with an email just behind or an SMS, just like, hey, I'm your touch point here. If you need any information, I'm here to help you. And just like this new layer of customer experience for especially high ticket items, like $1,000 jacket, that's definitely like something that's just around the corner.
Yeah, and I guess it points out the weakness in a lot of these retail brands that they oftentimes don't have a CRM. Gorgeous is their CRM or something like that. And Gorgeous really only works with known accounts and customers, et cetera. Whereas a CRM can take, for example, if you're in the Canada Goose store and you've got a QR code for me, have us contact you with more information or have us reach out to you with a special deal or promotion or whatever it is. That really needs a CRM in the back end to be able to manage that properly, apart from just a standard help desk like a Gorgeous. So I think a lot of these retail brands are going to have to up their game from a technology perspective to be able to take full advantage of a platform like yours, or even a platform like Gorgeous for that matter. So it's interesting to see how this is evolving to be more like a B2B like experience in terms
Yeah.
of the sales rep or the concierge type of experience. So very cool. Now, how do you guys make your money? I see that you basically base it on credits, right? $60 a month plan, up to 400 minutes worth of voice, 2,400 credits because it's 6 credits per voice
Per minute.
minute, right? And then you also have 1 credit used per SMS sent. So it's based on the concept of credits, right?
Right. Yeah, or 10 cents, 10 cents a minute, or 1 credit per 10 seconds. So we're really billing per incremental. So hey, every time you engage like a new 10-second on the phone, like we're billing you 1 credit. So if you have like only a minute and 20 seconds, it's going to be like 8 credits basically. So that's how we're really just usage based, right? So for us, if you're not making money with this thing, we're not going to be a customer very long. Not that you should, but yeah, so that's how it's priced, and it starts at $30 a month. So if you want to roll it out on your most valuable segments and then go engage with them and see what they say, you want to call your abandoned checkout, and they're going to tell you things you've never heard before, which other brand they went to buy from since they did their abandoned checkout on your website. Like they're going to tell you which competitor they finally went to buy your product from instead of yours. And those are going to really open up some lights to your marketing department. Oh yeah, really, we didn't know we were competing against these guys, or that because of this reason the person didn't complete their purchase. But if you just want to test that a little bit, like $30 a month, like you're going to be able to log like a lot of calls, and then obviously it can scale to support very large team. But that's also directly aligned with our infrastructure cost.
Of
The
course.
time spent on the phone is like by far our biggest cost item, like in our infrastructure. So we feel like that our incentives are directly aligned with the customers. And we didn't talk about B2B. You just mentioned it. It's just like calling your B2B segments and just engage. A lot of e-commerce brands now have built like B2B segments. They have those identified in their CDP and claim it and whatnot. It's like, really, this person did rebuy like in the last 3 months, and it's a B2B customer, and they use like, man, you need to have them programmatically dialed and just go check in and help them like complete the next purchase order or whatever. But it's like, you need to be on top of your B2B segments. You need to be on top of your influencers. And yeah, we think that there's a better way to do it.
And when we think about you're effectively a VoIP system, right? All the conversations are going through your system. The dialing is going through your system. I'm guessing, are the conversations being recorded by the system for machine learning and AI to be layered over the top of that so that the system continually learns from the human conversations that are being had?
Correct. The first purpose of recording is just, a little bit more like quality feedback. And, but yes, the conversations, if you want, are recorded.
Right.
And then also we're using that recording or that voice to text to then generate also an AI
transcription.
Exactly. Then we use transcription to generate like a quality score by AI to see, this agent like consistently meets your brand like guidelines. So like they're scoring like 8, 9 out of 10 like on every call, whereas another agent like might fall off. So we're just like using AI to streamline the quality feedback to the supervisors because there's so much data potentially. And we're using the recording as a first step there.
And obviously it helps with the machine learning and AI for when you eventually roll out fully automated agents as well. Wow. Love it. Look, this is incredible. I'm really looking forward to your January 6th launch. This podcast will be out after January 6th, so you'll be fully live. Now, I'll drop a link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes, as well as the web address for CONSIO into the show notes as well. Other than that, how do you like people to get a hold of you and have a chat about all things voice communications with customers?
Yeah, and all things e-commerce in general, but just shoot me an email at phil@consio.ai.
Absolutely love it. Now, listen, it's been a great conversation. Hours absolutely flown by. This is the point where I get to flip the script. I get to hand the microphone over to you. I get to let you ask me one question. Any question you like, can be personal or professional. So, Mr. Philippe, what is your question for me today?
Yeah, really the question would be around like B2B engagement. What do you see right now are the main ways that they can grow the amount of engagements that they have with their B2B brand and just create a little bit more like affinity with their retailers? Because we've seen a lot of B2C brands that have grown like tremendous B2B portfolios. And how do you find that these guys like are creating this affinity right now with their brands?
I'll tell you, it's about how can we inject commerce and service experiences into communication channels that our customers are already using. And in the B2B world, that's mostly historically been email, WhatsApp, Slack, maybe DMs on LinkedIn, right? And oftentimes it's something as simple as I've been consulting to a few B2B brands recently. And when I speak to the sales teams, they'll be like, let me show you the level of technical immaturity of some of our customers. Okay.
Yeah.
So the sales guy, he goes, look, here is a message I got on WhatsApp from one of my customers. They literally wrote their order on a Post-it note. They took the photo of the Post-it note and they sent it to me on WhatsApp and said, hey, can you place this order for me? There was another customer that they showed me where the customer didn't know how to attach a CSV or a spreadsheet to an email. So instead, the customer created their order, like 50 lines on a spreadsheet. It was on their computer screen. They took a photo of the spreadsheet on their computer screen and they attached the photo to the email that got sent to the customer, the sales rep, and they said, hey, can you place this order for me? I guess meeting customers where they are, and with machine vision and AI and everything else, we can now take these image attachments, we can read them, we can interpret them, we can map them into the commerce systems. And it's not just about the transaction either. There's a lot of customers in the B2B world that'll send a WhatsApp message to their sales rep and say, hey, do you have this SKU in stock? When could you ship it? How long would it take to get to me? What's my price on this SKU number? And they send it like they're on the job site or whatever, and they're not in front of their computer or whatever it is. And they'll just send a message to their sales rep on WhatsApp or their customer service agent on WhatsApp and say, can you help me with these 5 things? Or, hey, where is this order? I placed it. When is it going to arrive to the job site, kind of thing? There is so much of this communication that we can automate, and we can actually inject the transaction directly into that channel in real time by receiving the message, interpreting the message, and then giving the customer the information they want in real time via AI, right? There are big efforts underway by a number of platform vendors, e-commerce platform vendors, to include those channels into the commerce experience, almost like WhatsApp becomes like a headless channel, right? A headless commerce channel. Email becomes a headless commerce channel. Slack becomes a headless commerce channel. And this is what we're seeing. And now there's actually, I've just done an interview with a dedicated platform that as a standalone platform acts as that middleware tool for all those weird and wonderful communications channels that need to be commerce and service channels as well, that sit between the brand and their ERP and their commerce engine, and can act as the essential glue that ties those systems together to interpret all of that communication and make it seamless for the customer and to automate significant portions of it. So that's the really cool thing that's coming to B2B commerce. Instead of trying to migrate your customers from channels that they're familiar with and that they love and they use every single day into your self-service e-commerce storefront that they have to log in, and then they have to like search and find and go to my account and place quote requests through the commerce engine, meeting them where they are in channels that they're already familiar with and trying to take and ingest any kind of information they give you, even if it's just a photo. That is the next frontier in the B2B commerce world right now.
That's awesome. So rich WhatsApp messages.
100%. 100%. Or rich emails, and being able to, instead of having a human agent receive that email, interpret that email, or even live chat, being able to automate a lot of the functions in the live chat before it actually has to be handed off to an agent. So to where is my order? I want to place a quote request, all those things, to be able to facilitate that in the chat channels that the customer is already using every single day anyway. That is a really important part of the automation. And more importantly, it doesn't just save the company time and resources. It's all about self-service. In the B2B world, now, more than Forrester shows, the 71% of B2B buyers are now either millennials or Gen Z. So the reality is that they don't want to have to deal with an agent if they don't have to. They want to be able to self-serve 95% of their engagement with a B2B supplier, and that's what this technology is designed to do.
That's awesome.
It's incredible. It's incredible. So finally, the B2B world is starting to get religion around digital sales and service. And I love it, and I'm so here for it. And that's why I love working in the B2B space. So it's so cool. Listen, mate, this has been a really great conversation. I appreciate your time. I wish you every success with this amazing new platform, and I can't wait to speak to you again soon. Are you a B2B or D2C e-commerce merchant? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to learn how we can help you scale your business.